No se ve. This is what they're saying.
Welcome to tonight's virtual ministry, Created to Love.
We are delighted to be with you, brothers and sisters, celebrating the Lord's triumph over death. Hallelujah, He is risen. We are Mario and Paula Martinez, co-directors from the Office of Marriage and Family Life Ministry, and we welcome you to Created to Love. This is part of the God is With Us virtual ministry initiative of the Diocese of San Bernardino's Ministry of Educational Services Department.
And through this initiative, we have the aim to journey with you as families and couples. It is a gift for us to walk with you today. And we're going to start our evening, our encounter in prayer. So we invite Victoria and Miguel Jimenez to lead us into prayer.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord, you created us in your image and likeness. We know you created us out of love and for love. You created us for a union of love with each other, just as you created us to be together forever with you. Lord, help us to be open today to learn, to live, and to love. We ask all of this as we pray together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, pray for us. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Miguel and Victoria, for guiding us this moment in prayer. We want to also thank everybody that's watching us. Again, this is an initiative so that we are walking and journeying with you at your home. It is with great privilege that we are able to do this and to be able to journey with you. Again, it's a gift for us. Thank you so much. And now for the rest of the evening, we have a couple that's going to be hosting us and guiding us through this video. And I want to introduce to you Juan Tarriola. They are from the parish in it's Sacred Heart Palm Desert. They're part of our advisory board as well. And we've known them for quite a while. They're a really wonderful couple with many talents and many gifts. And today they'll be helping us and guiding us through this evening. So let's welcome Juan and Edith.
Thank you, Mario and Paola, for welcoming us. Yes, good evening. So I would like to introduce our advisory board this evening that is on with us. We have Miguel and Victoria from St. Thomas the Apostle in Riverside, Dan and Lydia from St. Mel's and Corona, Jason and Lorena from Sacred Heart in Rancho Cucamonga. We also have with us Gustavo and Leah from St. Paul the Apostle in Chino Hills, George and Dulce from St. George in Ontario. So welcome.
Yes, and we also have the pleasure of introducing our presenters this evening. We have Melvin and Eillien Mendez. They are actually parishioners from one of our oldest parishes in our diocese, which is San Bernardine's. They have experience accompanying couples through marriage preparation for over 20 years. Wow. They have served in the Office of Marriage and Family Life Advisory Board for over 5 years as well. And they are also licensed for several communication skill curriculums as well. So now we'd like to turn it over to Melvin and Eillien so they can enlighten us with our theme today for today's session, which is tools for building a fulfilling marriage.
Thank you. Welcome, thank you.
Okay. We have one of those technical errors in our screen. Well, welcome. We're happy to be able to share a moment of hopefully learning or reflection for some of you. Maybe it's material that you have the opportunity to listen in one of the communication classes. So it's always good to refresh if that's the case. So we're going to start talking about a little bit of communication. Communication, if you go to a dictionary, communication is the process of passing information and understanding from one person to another. In other words, communication is the power to share feelings, emotions, questions, doubts between two people. But when this communication is happened in a mature couple, not in age, but in communication skills, you know that you will listen, but at the same time, you're going to have the opportunity to be listened. So it's a route open, and it's going to create a good, it's going to create a good time to talk, because you know that you're going to have the opportunity to share your feelings. One of the things that when we were searching and creating material to present to you guys, I was looking to a little bit of in the Bible, and I found this part in James, and talk about, said, my brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And I was like, wow, this is powerful. I'm going to repeat it because it's amazing. Said, this is in James chapter 1. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And I have to say that many times, guilty, that's not what I do. Probably I go the other way around. I get angry and then I try to think what I'm going to do. But the Bible is calling us to stop, listen first. And when we listen, well, the good thing of that is that you're not thinking, you're just listening. And that gives you the opportunity, to just calm yourself and really feel empathy to the other person and connect to the other person. And in order to do that, when you connect with that other person, then what happens is you're open, and you're open, then you learn. And I was looking at Proverbs chapter 16 that said, the heart of the wise make their mouth prudent, and their lips promote instruction. So, and for sometimes when we are upset, or even when we want to share something, we get so intense on what we want to say that we can say something the wrong way. Not necessarily the wrong words, but the intonation is not the right one. And that's when we need to then, calm down, bring our thinking cap, and really take it easy, be patient, and breathe in, breathe out, and start, okay, what I want to do. I want to listen. Okay, I'm going to listen. And then later, after you listen, then you're going to see that everything is going to come out in a different way. One of the things that 4 key elements for better communication and effective dialogue will be sharing. And we talk every day. Yep. Every day we communicate to each other, we talk. But sharing is different. Sharing is talking about my fears, my feelings, my dreams, my goals, my desires. And many times when we are dating, we spend all that time, time is not enough. We're talking all the time. But then we get married, we get busy, work, family, and everything in between, and we do not realize that we're not spending that time to share, just to share. The other one that is really good is listening, and I talked a little bit before about that. Listening is extremely important, and I have to say that I have to learn to listen. I'm a leader by nature, so I was like giving instructions to everybody, and sometimes I have to hold back. Or even my son one time, I remember one time he said, "Mom, listen to me." And it hit me, and I was like, oh, okay, let me slow down and just listen to him. Spend some time finding what's going on, what he's feeling, what he wants, what are his needs. The next one will be acceptance. And when we talk about acceptance, when we fall in love with the whole package.
Yep.
And we are full of virtues, but we have our faults too. And understanding really what our spouse is all about, and counting your blessings. Many times and happen, and in our experience working with couples, is that we concentrate our time in all the things that our spouse is doing wrong. And we forget that if we sit down and make a list of all the good things and all the not that good things, or the things that maybe we don't like, the long list are the good things. It's just how we sometimes get upset with the little things, instead of putting all the attention, all the amazing things that our spouse is able to do and do for us on a daily basis. And that acceptance, I check the whole package. I love this whole package with all the good things, and sometimes the things that can make me crazy at one point or another, but still I love him regardless. That doesn't change. And risking further growth. In order to do that, you have to be authentic. You have to be honest. You have to let your spouse know how you feel about things. Sometimes telling him something that you are maybe fearful that how he's gonna react to it. But after every challenge or every situation, difficult situation we overcome, I always remember the time that we had probably 10 years of marriage or so, and I hit with my hip our minivan, and I make a dent in the car really bad. And I was tempted to say, you know what, was not me, I don't know. But I said, I never lied to him, so why I'm gonna start now? And very sad, as I know he's gonna be upset, but I'm gonna, take the blame, and if you get upset, that will be my what I have to do. So when he came in, I told him, and I said, I need to talk to you. And he was like, why so serious? And I said, no, I need to share what's going on. So I showed him the car, and he said, what happened? And I said, that was me. And I said, with what? And I'm like, with my hip. And he was like, he started laughing, and I was like, I'm all worried. He's going to be very upset because Melvin is very particular with the cars. So, and he was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. So he, to my surprise, he was like more concerned that I really hurt myself, that what happened to the car. But that gave us the opportunity to go deeper and to risk, because I said, well, if he get upset with me, then I will take the blame, and whatever is my punishment, I will take it. But was the other way around. So he was like, no, you know what? It's okay. And I was like, promise me that you're not gonna hit the car again. So I promised that. But after that, we grew up closer. And was a lesson for me too, because I was tempted to just walk away and say, oh, I found it like that. But I said, no, I have something really strong, so I'm not gonna do nothing that damaged that. And that helped us to really become a stronger couple. And to become a stronger couple, we need to understand the needs of our spouse. We need to understand the things that he likes. And we were lucky enough to read the book where we saw the 5 love languages. And at this point, we were 5 years in marriage. And I remember I was leaving to Puerto Rico, and Melvin told me, "What do you want me to do when you're out?" And I said, "Could you read this book, please?" He said, "Okay." And this book have brought a lot of answers to a lot of questions that we have as a couple. And Melvin is gonna guide us, or is gonna introduce us to these 5 languages of love. These techniques that have been amazing for us.
Thank you. Yes, when I read that book, I realized that, each one of us perceives love a different way. And this book, like I said, Eillien mentioned, it's the author is Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages. And he was very helpful for our relationship, because we were like, doing things and we were not getting along sometimes. And I said, but, we love each other, but what's going on that we can't complete that union, that love that we have for each other. So we realized that after reading this book, each one of us perceives the way they like to be loved a different way. And thank God to this book that we were able to
Learn the skills
and how to identify each other's love language. So the first one that he talks about is called words of affirmation. This is a love language that you express your love with words that build up your partner, your spouse. And these are compliments, like, doesn't have to be complicated, very long, or very poetic. It could be something very simple. Thank you for doing this for me. I love you. And it was great what you did. And the dinner was amazing that you prepared. Thank you for preparing my favorite dish. Things like that. But as long as you go with that, I love you because you prepared this or did this for me, or you look amazing with that blouse, or your hair looks amazing today. But in the same way, it goes the other way. If you say something negative, like in a negative compliment, of course, that's going to damage the relationship.
And
so
bring down
you
the
try
other
to avoid
person.
that.
Mhm.
So you want to build up the love, not to decrease your love. And there's another passage in the Bible from Proverbs. Gracious words are like honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. So just think about it. If you give good words to your spouse or your partner, that's going to be, increase your affection, your love within each other. Another way of showing love is acts of service. Your partner is maybe thinking that, okay, action speaks more. Have you heard that phrase that says action speaks more than words? Well, I'm an act of service. I like to be doing things for people, helping people, doing everything I can. But not always your partner is going to, or your spouse is going to feel the love the same way as you show it. So you have to be careful with that, because sometimes you do a lot of things for that person, and that person can say, no, I'm not, I appreciate what you're doing, but you still don't show me how much you love me. So for a person that reflects as acts of service, anything they do for that person is going to be accepted with love. I love when she cooks my favorite meal. I love when she gets my shirts ironed at the
Cleaner.
Thank you.
I dropped them with them off.
So I love that. So that's acts of service, things that can be done for you, that you love, that your partner or spouse does for you. Another one is quality time. Quality time is the amount of time that you can spend with your spouse with no distractions, no smartphones, no TV, just the two of you. But that doesn't mean that you can spend some time with your spouse, maybe watching a movie. That's quality time, because maybe it's a movie she wants to watch. Say, hey, can you join me and watch this movie with me? That's quality time. But it's that connection that you have to have. Okay, that's she loves to have quality time. Let's get together. And so could be even having a cup of coffee in the morning. Spend some time together. Talk about things that you're planning for the day, things like that. Next one will be receiving gifts. This love language, what it reflects is that you don't have to be materialistic. Oh, I want this. I want the latest car. Yeah, I mean the new Porsche available. No, not necessarily. It has to be materialistic. It's just to show how you're thinking about your spouse. So you said if your love language is receiving gifts. You just, let's say, pick up some. She loves coffee ice cream. So if I go to the grocery store, buy some coffee ice cream, I share with her. She loves it. I love coffee ice cream too, but she loves it too. But that's a gift that she will appreciate more than if I gave her, like, I don't know,
Vanilla ice cream.
vanilla ice cream. So that's what we're talking about receiving gifts. And there's one passage in the Bible too, from Corinthians. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. So you have to give out of your heart, not because of obligation or nothing like that. And the last one of the love languages is called physical contact. And this is not just like in this way, like sexual contact. It can be only holding hands, giving a hug, a kiss, just to feel connected with your spouse. That's the idea. And of course, it's not to be like overwhelming, that you don't want to be all over her and in public, of course, but it's just to show your affection to her. And some people feel more love like that. Her love language is physical contact. Every time I hold her hand, I give her a kiss, or I give her a massage. She loves it because I'm showing that I care for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's important to know and to identify the love language of your spouse. And that's one of the reasons that we find out that we were lacking in our marriage. And I said, we're compromised to each other. We love to each other, but he was happy and I was not happy. And when we read this book, we realized that he was showing me love through service, but I perceived love through touch. So we were talking two different languages, even though it was easier for me because I find out that my mother is service. So it became kind of natural for me to serve Melvin because it was something that I learned with my mom, but was not natural for Melvin to show love through touch because he showed his love through appreciation. Through service. So and that's the hard part. Speak the love language that your spouse needs. And then at the beginning could be a little bit challenging because you have to make that decision. And I'll say, okay, what is the love language of my spouse? Which one how I'm gonna show him that I love and that I care. And when you find that, then it will be a conscious decision. Start making those changes to be sure that you show love the way that your spouse perceive it. And ask your spouse, and I'll say, talk about it, decide which one it is and how you feel love. And let that person know what it is, and then start making those changes. That is going to make a big difference. And many times, a lot of the challenges are that you're not speaking the love language of your spouse. And you're loving that person, but the other person is not perceiving the love. Another area that is extremely important is financial plan. And many people have many ways to manage their finances in a household. But the most important is that you have to find what works for you. And that has to be something that both of you are 100% happy with it. It doesn't matter what it is. If you put, here we have everything in one account. What is in there is ours. It doesn't matter if I was working or not. It doesn't matter if I'm working or not. It's ours. And it's, everything is for the needs of the family. No discussion for that. It's easy. But when you want to do things as in taking in consideration your finances, create a plan. It could be that you want to pay off some debt. It could be that you want to plan a vacation. It could be that you decide that you want to start putting money aside because you want to buy a house. Whatever it is, set a date. If you don't set a date, a goal when it's going to happen, probably you're not going to work towards that. Always set a date. And I have an example. One time I remember we were planning, I said, Melvin, I think it's time for us to go to Puerto Rico because our moms are over there. And Melvin looked at me like, how? And I said, you know what? I think I have a plan. Let's sit down. We talk about it. We brought the kids to it. And I said, you know what? We have to do some savings here and there. So are you willing to help us? And they said yes. It was funny I remember one Sunday we went to mass, we got out of mass, and our son said, let's go out to eat. And our daughter, Neshma, the smallest, said, no, remember, we're saving because we're going to Puerto Rico. And we were like, we started laughing, but she was so accountable to that we have to say as a family, because we were gonna go out. And be sure that you set priorities. What is going to be the priority for the family? Maybe it's a house, or maybe it's, you know what, maybe I'm going to stay for this amount of months and mom is going to stay home and it's not going to work anymore until the kids are a certain age. Whatever your goal it is have to be something that is attainable, is something that you are willing to work for together, and you need to set a date. That way you can look at that plan, how it's going to be done, and be sure that you're working and you're progressing to get that done. And be sure that when you talk about finances, be sure that you include your parish with your talent, your treasure, and be part of it. I know we are right now in our homes, but I know many of parishes have online giving. So that's something that we have to remember. You know, we receive so many blessings, and we never should forget that our first hour should be given to the Lord, because our parish take care of us, but take care of everybody else too, you know, through our needs in many ways. And I would like to finish with something that Pope Francis said at the World Meeting of Families. In your house, are you scream and yell, or you talk with words of love? What is the measure? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eillien and Melvin, for sharing such beautiful, thank you for sharing on that book, the five love languages. I love how you finished and how you finished. Don't forget our parishes. Our parishes are very important. We be part of that, because that's what has allowed us to grow in our marriage, our parish, and our community, the love. I also love how you really talked about how you have to find what the priority is in your family. What is your family? How does your family look today, especially right now, right? What works for you? Let's talk about that a little bit. That's beautiful. And I also love how you still continue to use this book, and it was a gift given to Alvin from Eillien, and that's beautiful. And I can tell that you guys still use it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, and I also really appreciated how your great communication lent itself to, you know, going beyond just you two and within your families as well, your children, how they, you know, they were sticking to it. And obviously it was because they were witnessing the great communication skills that you guys demonstrated and you set forth as an example. I would also like to share or thank you so much for kind of being very honest about the challenges you guys encountered on your way throughout your marriage, because we can all relate those feelings, the weaknesses, the challenges on your journey together as husband and wife. Thank you so much, because we can all sit there and, you know, you giggled and everything, because, and it's beautiful because we've seen how deep your love is through this journey that you've shared together. So thank you so very much for that.
Yeah, I remember when Edith, I can relate to when she made a dent on her car. I brought back that memory, and I remember.
And I remember that feeling,
She did, and my first reaction was, "Are you okay?" And that just changed everything. Are you okay? How are you? And I can relate to that as well. We experienced that about 10 years ago. It's beautiful.
So thank you very much for that beautiful presentation. And now we'd like to offer 2 discussion questions for everyone out there to take part in with their significant other, with their husband or wife. And these 2 questions are, share with your spouse about a moment when you felt heard and understood. So that, once again, that is, share with your spouse about a moment when you felt heard and understood. And please take this opportunity to look each other in the eye and really communicate and put out how you feel. And also, like Eillien mentioned in their presentation, listen, take the time to listen and not rush to anger or rush to speak.
And be honest. Honesty, and whatever that honest might be, just be honest to one another and yourself as well.
Yes, so we'll give you a couple minutes to discuss number 1. And now we'd like to move on to question number 2. Share some things that your spouse does to meet your love language needs. Words of affirmation, acts of service, physical contact, quality time, receiving gifts. So please share with your spouse some things that your spouse does to meet your love language needs. Thank you so much for taking part in these discussion questions. And now we'd like to ask our panel here for their responses that they came up with when they shared these questions with one another. So first, we'd like to go with Jorge and Dulce. Share with your spouse about a moment when you felt heard and understood.
What we were saying, what he told me was there was a specific instant in he was feeling really sad for no specific reason. You know, it was just maybe one of those days he just felt sad. And I noticed it, but I gave him his space. But so he let me know, he verbally let me know, I'm feeling sad, you know? And he's telling me right now, he didn't tell me this before, but he's like, you didn't say anything, but you just went ahead and hugged me. And that made me feel loved, you know? That you didn't have to say anything. You just hugged me and I felt understood and loved. So,
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that he didn't mention it then, but he meant that's how he felt. And he's sharing that with you now. Thank you.
And Jorge, would you like to share?
Would you like to?
Está bien. We're fine.
Maybe next time.
Next question. Okay, well, let's go to our next couple here. Thank you.
Okay, now moving on to Lydia and Dan. Would you please share about a moment when you felt heard and understood by your spouse?
Lydia and Dan?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind is just recently, Dan and I have gone through just a number of family members or friends who've unexpectedly passed away. And then there was just the most recent two, which was a cousin of mine unexpectedly, and then a brother-in-law on Dan's side of the family passed away. And my heart was just so heavy. It was just, he could just see I was just always on the brink of tears, just because it just, and like I said, in the course of the beginning of January to now, it was probably like 11 people of friends and family just were like, Lord, what is going on? And one day he just showed up, and I was having an extra rough day, a day or so beforehand, and he just showed up with a beautiful bouquet of flowers. And he just knows that just melts my heart. And I was so not expecting it. And it just, it just made me just feel so grateful that he knew how I was feeling. And he knew that would make me just feel loved. And it was a beautiful moment. So that was the first thing I thought of. How about you, honey?
And then we're fixing properties and investment properties, but this goes back to a tile job that I was doing at our last house, like in Eastvale. And I'd worked Lydia. She's really good at giving me deadlines. Like, you need to have it done because I'm having people over on Tuesday.
But the good news is I don't write a honey-do list. So I just say, honey, can you? I verbally say it.
So it was like probably Saturday, and I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I worked, and probably it was about 8 o'clock or 8:30 at night. I was just about to pass out, and I was finishing the grout on this tile job. And Lydia, was following me with helping me wipe down the grout. But at the end of it, I said, that's it, I'm done. And I've made it, I made it in the kitchen. I made your deadline. And she goes, okay, here's 4 Advil and a glass of wine. And she drew a bath for me upstairs. And I really felt like, okay, she rewarded me because she gave me this deadline, but she gave me, like she knew I was sore and going to be hurting the next day. So that was a special moment.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you both.
Thank you. And now we'd like to ask Gustavo and Lilia for about a moment when you felt heard or understood by the other.
I remember there was probably about 6 months ago, I was going through a tough time where I was just personally, with my confidence, and I was trying to overcome some fears that I had because of some past failures. And there was a time where we went out to dinner, and my wife just shared with me how she said, I know that you're not going to be happy, and I know what you're capable of. And it just made me feel really understood and very loved to know that she was committed. She was committed to seeing me at my best, the best version of me. And I didn't feel that, at that time. So I just felt really grateful to God. And I felt more in love with her because I could see it in her eyes that it wasn't because she wanted more financial security. It wasn't because she was thinking of herself, but she really wanted to see that light in my eyes and that fire for life in terms of doing what she knows that I was meant to do and what God has planned for me. So I just felt really awesome to know that she believes in me. And I think that's very important in our marriage, to know that that she's my biggest fan and that she lifts me up in that way. So that's one that God puts in my heart that I remember clearly and I really appreciate. And it really helped me to be able to get that kind of leverage and that momentum to start going towards that path that I know that God is calling me to go. And it makes such a big difference when the person next to you, she's my heart. She's the one that pushes me past my fears. And then to hear her vocalize that is a very important thing for me.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. It's very powerful.
Thank you, Gustavo.
Yeah. Lilia, would you like to share?
Sure. For me, it was maybe about 2 years ago. I had just started working. I hadn't worked for many years, and I started working full time. And so for me, it was a really big change of, coming home and still having to do my daily duties of being a mom and cooking and cleaning and doing everything like that. And so I never vocalized that I needed help. And I kind of don't blame him, because it was like so many years of living a certain lifestyle with me being at home. And then all of a sudden, I'm working. So that transition was not as smooth as I would have liked it to have been. So in me, I kind of felt like he should know that I need help. But, it wasn't until I vocalized it to him and I said, like, I need you to help me. Like, I can't do this by myself. I just can't. It's too much. We have 5 kids. I'm working full time. I was going to school at the time as well. So it was just like a lot. And I remember like the first time I saw him washing the dishes, and I was like, oh, sure. He thinks he's a hero because he washed the dishes. And, but then he persevered. Like, he kept washing the dishes. He kept picking up, like, and I was like, oh, like, this is like he gets it. Like, he totally gets it. And I was like, that for me was like, it was such a big deal, because my love language is acts of service to begin with. And for him to really understand my needs and to be able to do them, to help me in that way was such a big deal for me. And, I know that he loves me and he wants to help me. It's just, almost 15 something years of being home. It wasn't such a smooth transition, but that was a big deal for me. And I felt his love through that.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, I can also relate to the hero dishwasher as well with Juan too. It was like, okay. And we thank all you couples for sharing. I think it's so beautiful that as we listen and we watch, we can all relate in some capacity to everyone's experience. Everyone's on their journey, and we have our high points, our low points, and we just have this connection. I noticed with every single couple, at our soul level, where we just we know we're at this point where we're reading each other and just loving each other along our journeys. So thank you all for sharing very much. That was very, very beautiful.
It was. Thank you.
Thank you. And so now we would like to move on to Dan and Lydia for our closing song and prayer.
This song is kind of a Hillsong United song called What a Beautiful Name. And we've sang it at a few weddings, and kind of brings in that love for God and for Jesus and his church, the bride. And kind of goes like this. You were the Word at the beginning, one with God, the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation
beautiful name it is, the name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is, the name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without him. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. And what could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. Death could not hold you. The veil torn before you. Silence the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring the praise of your glory. For you are raised to life again. And you have no rival. You have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. And yours is the kingdom, yours is the glory, yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is, and nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is, the name of Jesus. The name of Jesus. The name of Jesus. We thank you, Jesus, so much. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for your name. We love you, Lord, in everything that we do, Lord. We ask you to send your Holy Spirit to be with us, like the speakers talked about today, that we may listen to each other and we may listen to you and the Holy Spirit in our lives, in our marriages, and in our families, that we may tell the truth, that we may understand each other's needs, Lord. Help us to do that and help us to learn those love languages and help us to share that with each other so that we know those love languages. We know when to show affection and when to affirm each other and when to give each other gifts and when to do service and when to spend quality time, Lord. Help us as we spend time with each other to spend time with you, Lord. Just just come into our lives and into our marriages, Lord, that we may truly live love as a domestic church. In your holy and precious name.
Amen. Amen. Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you for sharing your beautiful gifts with us.
Yes, and you mentioned the domestic church in your closing prayer, which is very beautiful. That is actually the topic of next week's session. So domestic church, the vocation of the family. So as we wrap things up, we invite you to join us again next week at 6:30 next Tuesday.
We will also like to share what's tomorrow. We also have our from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. our Ven Espíritu Creador, and it's in Spanish with the Charismatic Renewal Office. On Thursdays, it's from 6:30 to 7:30 with our youth, the Office of the Youth, and from 7:30 p.m. to 8:30, our young adults. You're welcome to join us as well. This Friday, we have Learning Together at Home. So from 6:30 to 7:30, it'll be in Spanish. Y Aprendiendo Juntos en Casa from 7:30 to 8:30. And they will have a few people, professionals, that'll be sharing and how we together during this time with a few advices for us and our families.
And also, if you're interested in getting more information about love language assessments, you can go to the website that you see here, noted below, capital MFLM at sbdiocese.org, so that you can access some love language assessments. You can actually email, and then we can give you further.
And this is a beautiful
resources.
time for us to really read this book and share it and learn with one another. I think we're gonna read it ourselves. Yes.
And thank you so very much for joining us. We hope to see you next week.
And thank you to all the couples that were here and sharing as well with everybody. Thank you. Let's wave goodbye and see you next week or join us tomorrow. Thank you so much.